on our screen. Oh, wait,
There we
yeah.
go. There we
Okay.
are.
Yep, says recording.
We are recording. So you guys are ready whenever you want to go.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you for taking your time to meet with us tonight. My name is Lynn.
Kelly.
I'm Josh.
I'm Cameron.
And to get this started, we just want to go over what our goal is tonight as a team. So our team today is meeting to tell you some improvements and opportunities of growth for the Savannah Chamber of Commerce to help the market and economy within Savannah. To start, we're going to go into the history of Savannah, Missouri.
Okay, so Savannah, Missouri's chamber was started in 1947. There are currently 125 organizations represented in the chamber, whether it be local business, nonprofit, or civic groups. So just a quick overview of what a chamber does and their operations on day to day. So with their community involvement, they reach out to the community leaders, and they work on roads, sidewalks, public parking lots, and business road access, so that customers will be able to get to those chamber members wherever their businesses are. So they also have government involvement. So the director or president of a chamber will work directly with state legislative officials. So they will work on laws, legislation, and ordinance to help out the chamber and work on anything that they have an interest in. As far as events go, sponsored by the chamber with their members and the community itself. So there's ribbon cutting ceremonies for grand openings, renovations, new ownership, stuff like that. And then there's also networking events and collaboration events. So that's where the members would get together, and then they would work together to maybe start up a new company or improve their existing companies. And then there's also an education side with the chamber. So the chamber hosts workshops, lectures, and skill building exercises with the members of the chamber so that they can take those resources back to their businesses and be more successful. So as far as Savannah, Missouri goes, so some of their events that they do throughout the year, so they have monthly meetings where all the members will get together and just hear up-to-date information that's going on in the community. And they also have educational sessions once a quarter, and that'll usually follow the monthly meeting of that month. And that's where they will have the workshops and the skill building exercises where they can take those skills back to their companies. And there's also a state legislative breakfast, and that's where the members of the chamber can sit down with local representatives and talk about things that they want to happen in the community as far as those laws, ordinance, and legislation goes. And then there are ribbon cutting ceremonies as well, hosted by the Savannah Chamber. And then there's 2 annual events. There's the annual banquet that's provided for all the members, as well as a golf tournament. And then Savannah Chamber actually has a connection with the local school district, where the school district will give $40,000 a year to the chamber, and they can use that money to advance any of their interests that any of the companies are involved in. So that's just an overview of the chamber.
So let's go down and break down what our research project looks like and how we accomplish all the goals that we set place of improving Savannah, Missouri. The phase 1 was choosing the indicators or the variables we wanted to really dig deep and see, like poverty rate, population, what the average household income is. Examples we'll go into detail further on. The town selection also came down to what towns are comparable to Savannah, but not too close to Savannah. Our team decided that since towns bordering each other might be able to share information easy, we decided to go a little bit further so that information that's harder to get because it is far away would be accessible for the Savannah Chamber of Commerce. And then the data collection was also part of phase 1, which is going into the Census Bureau and just going through their databases and putting them into a matrix, which has been shared with you and will be broken down later as well. And then after all that is phase 2. Phase 2 goes into the analysis of the data. So what is happening right now in Savannah, Missouri, and what does that say about their economy and strengths and weaknesses? We do this through the data analytics of ranking different towns to see who's the most comparable, and then those towns that are most comparable, evaluating what they do as a chamber that helps improve some of the weak spots in Savannah, and if we believe Savannah, Missouri could also do those events or encourage those kinds of people to join the chamber. And then finally, with our recommendations, we chose the most comparable town and went through what they did exactly so that there's a solution in place for Savannah if they would like to proceed with it. At the end of the report that has been sent to you is also all contact information for all 10 of the towns, so that if there's a certain question about how do you get your indicator to look so great, you can reach out to those people one-on-one. So, like I said, here's the data matrix, and I'll go through it because I know sometimes numbers can be scary. At the very top, you see city indicators and resident indicators. We broke down economies into two different ways, one as a whole and then one as an individual level. Within those two categories, there's 4 indicators each. As you can read, it's city population, poverty rate, crime index, number of employees, median resident age, median household income, percentage of population graduating from secondary education, and average household size. Then there's a final composite score. So we took this data. Can you see my mouse on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can.
Yes, perfect. Okay. So the data collected here is from the census, and then there's a formula that ranks each of the towns below to Savannah, which would have a perfect score of 1 because it is a perfect comparison of Savannah. At the end, we added all these data ranks and highlighted the #1 town for the most comparable, which was Willard. If you have any questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. But that breaks down how we decided what town is most comparable and where our data was collected from. Thanks.
So as we're going into the different breakdown of the indicators, you're going to have that graphic, so you'll be able to look closely at the numbers, and they're also listed within the paper. So it kind of like tells you what number Savannah has, as well as like what towns are most like them, and strengths and weaknesses in that form. But in this presentation, I'd just like to go over just some of the broad things without using those specific numbers. So the first thing that I want to talk about is poverty index. So that's something that really stuck out to me whenever I was looking at Savannah's. It's actually pretty high compared to the other places around. And also from our experience visiting Savannah and talking to people there, found that it is really impacting the community in a big way because it is so rural and traveling by cars is necessary to get to work, to get around. And so it really affects the community in a big way. And we all know that poverty really affects everyone, those experiencing it, and then everyone else around as well. So yeah,
deeper into the poverty discussion. Compared to Willard, we're actually not doing too well in Savannah. I believe the number it was the farthest away by a good amount. Savannah has a 10% poverty rate, while Willard has a 6.2%. And this was pretty shocking to us considering they look to be similar towns. And when I looked a little deeper into it, I found it was mostly because Savannah's losing a lot of jobs that were once provided for the lower income working class, essentially. For instance, agriculture has moved from small local farms to huge operations. So that's cut off a lot of people. And also these large operations are using machinery rather than manual labor. So a lot of jobs have left Savannah because of that. And yeah, so, excuse me, with the poverty, we think the best way to approach that situation when looking at Willard is to provide those lower income jobs rather than prioritizing the jobs that require higher qualifications.
The second thing is the population insight. This is pretty common. We all know that it's a small town. Savannah really takes pride in the fact that it's a small town. So compared to other ones, yes, it is going to be small. But in terms of strengths and weaknesses, I think it is a strength for Savannah. because the people take such pride in it, and because it is such like the heart of what the community is. Everybody knows everyone because it is small. So I certainly would say that that's a strength, even though towns around it that may have better reports on different indexes are a little bit bigger.
Right. So regarding population, the two towns are very similar, Savannah and Willard. And this wasn't a statistic we thought to be too crucial at this time. I think in the long run, Savannah would like to grow, but in Willard's case, the growth did provide like more people, but that residential feel that brings a lot of people back to Savannah is not felt in Willard. And actually, their population has been declining recently, while Savannah's has been going up. And we think that is heavily attributed to the fact that a lot of professionals who get a degree and go find a job elsewhere end up retiring because they miss that small town feel. But when you balance the costs and the benefits, we do believe that Savannah should look to grow.
The next insight is number of employees. So in Savannah, that's actually pretty high. You're doing pretty well in that location. And we think this might be due to the relative location to Kansas City and St. Joe, and being able to do commerce in those places that are a little bit bigger. Specifically looking at like Wakefield and the things that he does within Kansas City, that's pretty true to some of the different ways that employees are able to work there. Also taking note in how big agriculture is in that area. So the number of employees is looking pretty good, and also there's plenty of room to grow there, but Savannah also will foster that growth. So that's good.
So Willard does have a few more employees. It's not a huge amount, and we think that's mostly attributed to its location. It's really close to Springfield, about a 25-minute drive. And that's, I believe, Missouri's like fourth most populated city. So it does make sense. And I don't think it's really a fair comparison. Savannah does have KC, but it's almost an hour away. And I don't think there's going to be too many people making that commute to work in Savannah. So as far as a comparison in that sense, we don't really think it's too important.
Median age for Savannah is trending a little bit higher than the other locations that we looked into. This could be a potential risk factor for Savannah in a big way. Nationally, the average age is growing, and that is also true within Savannah. This is a risk because the more old a population gets, the more things that they need healthcare-wise and support. And if there's not as many people moving into Savannah to really support the economy and get out there and do those jobs, the economy could collapse in that area. So it's definitely one of the biggest risk factors I see in Savannah.
Yep. So Willard does have a slightly higher, it has a slightly a lower median age, and we do think that is also tied into the fact that a lot of people return to Savannah after leaving. So that would push those median age numbers up. I do agree that we should have younger people. So maybe sacrificing a little bit of that hometown feel would be beneficial to the town in the long run.
Cool. So median household income. This one was right on par with a lot of the other things that I was seeing. So pretty average. There were plenty of other towns that were similar to Savannah in terms of median household income. So there's opportunities and threats in that. If there were to be a dramatic change in other towns, they might go to that town and seek out those resources. So given that it's kind of in that same average level, certainly room for growth.
Yep. This was definitely one of the more interesting comparisons I got to look at. Willard actually has a smaller gap. So they have a smaller like top income and a higher lower income, which indicates that Savannah at first looks like it's doing better in this regard, but in reality, Savannah is failing their lower class a little bit. it's drastically lower. Almost the lowest paid salary in Savannah is almost half the size of the lowest in Willard. And we believe that's a huge problem because obviously you need a working class, and that makes up a large percentage of most populations. So if you ignore them, they will be forced to leave. And that is one of Savannah's biggest concerns, in my opinion, right now.
Average household size is just another one of those indicators that's pretty on par with the towns that we researched. It also is pretty on par with the national average. So everything within that is going to be between 2 and 3 children per household. And Savannah is kind of pretty much smack dab in the middle of that. I think that can be attributed to the good education system that you provide there, as well as economic benefits for certain individuals. So that environment really fosters a lot of children, or like at least being on par and not lower than the average. So certainly keep it there, keep the education there, and it'll be a strength for Savannah.
Yep. Savannah and Willard were very similar in this regard. They both have highly rated school systems. They're pretty much right next to each other on the list. So in this sense, there's not really much to learn from Willard in Savannah's case. And yeah, the stats just kind of speak for themselves.
Crime index, that is Savannah's top benefit. That kind of goes right along with the population being low. Population and crime index are some of Savannah's biggest pride points. That small town, everyone knows each other. It ranks one of the lowest for all of the different crime indexes that we've looked into. So certainly a big draw for people to move to Savannah is the safety of the community.
Right. So, yeah, they are the 2 lowest, I believe. Actually, no, the 3rd. There's one lower that we didn't look at too well. But, yeah, essentially, they're in a good spot with crime. I think a lot of that is attributed to its small size and relatively homey feel. Like, you know pretty much everybody in your town, so it would be tough to commit crimes and get away with it. And obviously, with an increase in population, crime is going to become a problem. But I bet the best way for Savannah to keep that crime low is to provide for the lower class, which again is one of the biggest issues I've come across.
Then our final indicator that we're going to look at is the percentage of population graduating from post-secondary education. This is one that we talked a lot about whenever we visited. And there's obviously no real consensus on how this is, but like whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. A lot of pride in the agriculture and the military aspects of Savannah and how that's really a part of the culture there. That also contributes to the lack of students immediately moving on to post-secondary education. So I do see that it could be a strength for having more students getting involved in university and coming back and bringing that wealth of knowledge to the community. But I also recognize my bias in this scenario. So when it comes to that, I do think that like bringing more people that have strong business knowledge that can build those startups and build different things that Savannah doesn't necessarily have so far would be super important. So certainly an area of growth, in my opinion.
Yep. So like I said in the last bit, they are very similar in this regard too. Both schools, very good. So really, we didn't think this was an issue that either towns have to address. Obviously, we want to see as many people getting into universities and getting better opportunities as possible. But the truth is that the more people get into university, it lowers the value of the degree. So I do think they're in a good spot right now. There's a lot of people going into the military, which is awfully important, and that isn't reflected in our statistic because this stat is people going directly from high school to secondary education. And also manual labor jobs, trades, all those things are vital, and especially in a place like Savannah where you're in the middle of the country, there's a whole lot of that work that needs to be done. I think those numbers are healthy for both towns right now.
So the benefit of not only looking at these things one-on-one is that through our matrix, you can take those data information and compare them to ratios. When we submit the final packet, you'll see an example of that through a number of employees and median household income. And that way you can compare not only those two things separately, but also together and what that means for the effect of Savannah, Missouri. And I just wanted to say that so that you know, yes, these are important to look at separately, but we also have a way, since we put this into Excel, to look at it comparably as well. On to our next thing is what did we find for overall arching themes?
Right. So in this section, I just kind of highlighted what I believe or what we believe are the most important things that Savannah needs to focus on right now. The biggest one for me was the tax situation, but population, I would say, is a close second. Uh, while the hometown feel is important to the identity of Savannah, they're in a very particular situation right now where growth might save them from kind of just being dropped off the map. Uh, it doesn't have to happen fast. In fact, I think slower growth would be better just so that the people, it is a very split community. I feel like a lot of people are unsure of which way it wants to go, or very sure, but not everybody's on the same page. So slow growth would assist the mending process, I suppose. But yeah, population, we definitely think needs to go up. Poverty and employees, I kind of tied together because it is the working class that I believe is the problem in Savannah. Not the people, but the amount of opportunities provided for them. They're just decreasing. So some type of manufacturing plant or something like that would really help the town. Just easy jobs that are easily accessible to the people who live there and don't require too many qualifications would be huge.
To that, it's also important to like focus on getting more opportunities in terms of finding food to those people experiencing poverty, because Savannah is such a food desert. It's really easy to monopolize food in that area. If there's only one grocery store, then they can raise the price, and it doesn't necessarily affect people who can just go there every day or even travel to St. Joe. The ones on food stamps, which she'd emphasize that that's a way of life for a lot of people. If there can be more legislation to help out those people find food, it can really greatly impact those people experiencing poverty. So that's another way to help out people experiencing poverty.
So these were the overall goals. So what can Savannah's Chamber of Commerce do to achieve those goals? Excuse me. Cameron will go on to explain that through a direct solutions.
So these are more internal things that the chamber can do to foster growth and to increase or to improve the economy in Savannah. There's a lot of events that Savannah's chamber holds, but I didn't really see a lot of networking events specifically for those chamber members. So in order to foster that growth that Josh was talking about, you need to have those networking events in order for those chamber members that are business leaders to collaborate and maybe brainstorm and have some innovation to bring those new businesses to Savannah in order to improve the commerce in the community. And I also thought about some community suggestions. So people that aren't in the chamber, just civilians in Savannah, would be able to make suggestions to the chamber about things that they think the community needs. And then those people that are the heads of business can go ahead and implement those changes to help the community. And I also saw that some chambers have a vice president of innovation. So this is a specific role that somebody would have. They would work with those chamber members and those business leaders that would help with the collaboration and the innovation aspect to have those new startups and new businesses come to Savannah.
Okay, so I know that was a lot of information. If you have any questions, we would love to answer them. Also, we spoke about different chambers across the board. And again, I want to emphasize all their contact information is on the bottom of our final product, which is a great resource. I've personally spoken to the Republic and the Willard Chamber of Commerce, so they are more than happy to help Savannah in any way.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Is that it?
Do you have any questions, Gina?
That's very good. It gives us some things definitely to consider. It does a good job finding us a comparable to look at. To be a town about our size outside of a larger city, which is what we kind of asked you for. I think that that's a big part of who we are, is our proximity to a town like that. And so that's a definitely an answer to what we requested. Also, where our main strengths are and where our main concerns are. And so, yeah, to look at that lower income population and where they are struggling is going to identify where we are as a whole struggling. So I think that's a good thing for us to look at. The idea of a particular, if not a particular position, but at least a person who is concentrating on kind of innovation and not just catering to the businesses we have, but like you said, looking at where we can bring new things in. That's also a good idea. And so I do look forward to bringing this to the chamber, and I appreciate all the work that you have done.
Absolutely.
Of course. And thank you.
Well, thank you. And so I will end the recording, and I will send the recording to you guys.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. We're thinking of your family. Hope you have a great holiday break.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.